And now we're going to move our focus over to the other team in town, the New York Mets. And they are kind of having a turn of faith. There's been a bit of a turn of faith with New York baseball. The Yankees struggling all season. Everybody's hating on them, while the Mets, under new ownership, Steve Cohen, finally have a winning season. They're in first place all season, if just by a hair, above the Braves and the Phillies. Well, that's all changed now. The Mets are now in third place with a 56-55 record. The Phillies are in first place, Braves in second, and the Mets just lost. We got swept by the Phillies this weekend. Dropped another game to the National, or rained out yesterday from the Nationals. Won a game this morning. It was supposed to be a doubleheader. Now tonight's game has just been rained out. So the Mets finally get their first win in a long slide of winless baseball. But Chris, what do you think this recent dip in the Mets performance is in regards to their entire season? Do you think it's just a bit of a slip up, a little dog days of August type slowdown for their team, or do you think this is just the symptoms of a bigger disease that's just rotted throughout this team for the entire season?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, the dog days of August slip up, right? That's something we see with every team. We just talked about the Red Sox at length, and the Red Sox are going through it right now. The difference between those two teams, is the Red Sox gave themselves a heck of a cushion, especially over the Yankees, to give them that room to go 2-8 or whatever it's going to be, whatever the 2-8 in the last 10, and they're able to bounce back, and we're able to talk about, hey, maybe they can still make the playoffs. With the Mets, they've been just mediocre the entire season, and now they've fallen off this cliff. And they never gave themselves a cushion over a bad Phillies team or a bad Braves team when they really had the opportunity to, right? I mean, the Mets have been playing against the Marlins are terrible, right? And then the Phillies have been bad, and the Braves have been bad. They lost 4 out of 6 to the Pirates around the All-Star break. They've lost to bad teams and never gave themselves the leg to stand on, basically, which is the problem that's rotting out the entire organization. Is this team cannot string together wins. Yeah, they're out their 2 best players right now, so that's not going to help, right? DeGrom is on the shelf for we really don't know how long, and Lindor is out for another couple of weeks, and now Baez is out with the hip injury, so that's 3 of their 5 best players, I guess, if you throw Alonso in there, who are out for an extended period of time. So, yeah, it's a problem because they did not give themselves the opportunity to have that injury-plagued 3 weeks in August. All right, let's build back up for September. Now they're going to be playing from behind. They have no chance at a wild card, and the way I see it right now, they have absolutely no chance, and they have to go up against the Braves and the Phillies, and they had that opportunity. That's what's really frustrating. Is we just talked about the Yankees. They have this opportunity with the Red Sox this week, or next week, I should say. And we could be saying the same thing about them on next week's Wednesday night one-on-one. But the Mets had an opportunity this weekend against Philadelphia to take 2 of 3 on the road to solidify themselves in first place and be like, okay, now we're going up against the Nationals, who are also terrible, and kind of build a lead in the division. And then DeGrom comes back, Lindor comes back, and they coast to the playoffs. They had that opportunity to start that last weekend. Instead, they got swept out of their rival stadium. Almost, they got one of the best pitching performances of the entire year by the guy who used to be on their team, who was about to win the Cy Young, and Zach Wheeler. And now they are a game and a half out and feel like they had no chance. So it's been an utter fall from grace, but you have to say it's expected.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think that the holes that are in the Mets that are glaring right now have kind of been there all season. They just have been covered up by the fact that everyone else in their division is just not playing well. They haven't been playing well all season. Obviously, the Braves and the Phillies they're catching heat right now, but they were playing very mediocre, under 500 ball all season. And obviously the Braves are expected to run away with this division. Maybe not run away, but they're certainly the favorites. And they lost Acuna, which is a huge blow to your team. But it's just one player. I mean, the Braves, even when they had Acuna, were still playing poorly and very, very underwhelming. And the Phillies, they up until this point, it just seemed like they could never get it together since they signed Bryce Harper and have their new manager in Joe Girardi. But I gotta say that the holes in the Mets that you're seeing right now, they've been there all season. Conforto is just not he's not batting like he's supposed to. It's very strange and almost it's just like hard to imagine that he's really batting under 200 right now, but that's the case. And then you also have James McCann, who's like not at all showing up, and it kind of makes you if you're a Mets fan, you're kicking yourself right now because you could have had JT Realmuto, who's an all-star catcher, and he's a division rival, and now his team is in first place. So that's a huge L that they took in the offseason. But it is the first year under Steve Cohen. I'm not saying this Mets season is a wash yet because obviously they were leading the division 5 days ago, but I don't see them playing much better than they are right now. It's really just a function of the teams around them, whether they can keep up this fast pace, this winning baseball, or whether they'll come back to earth. But for the Mets, they have had their opportunities. They got swept in Philly this weekend. Right before the trade deadline, they had a 5-game series against the Braves, and they only took 2 from it. And that was back when the Braves were really struggling. So they haven't taken advantage of their opportunities. I think they really have this team has a ceiling right now, and obviously they're missing some key players. And Jacob deGrom, who's been injured for a while. Same with Lindor, and now Javi Baez is on the IL. But it's not like those 3 players could necessarily turn this team around right now because it's baseball. You don't rely on one player to just make your team good. It's not basketball. It's not a quarterback in football. You need really everyone to be producing, or at least most people to be producing on a consistent level. And that's just not been the case for this team for the entire season. So really, I think the only thing that has been keeping the Mets in first place is the ineptitude of the NL East. And now the NL East is waking up. So it's not a good time to be a Mets fan.
Yeah, and I think that point about one player can't make your team better is 100% true in every situation in or 99% of situations in baseball. But in the Lindor situation, it's especially when a player just hasn't been good. Like Francisco Lindor is a fantastic shortstop. We know that from his time in Cleveland, and we know that from the package it took and the contract it took to get him to New York. But in his 87 games, he only has 71 hits, 11 homers, 36 RBIs, 61 strikeouts, and is batting .228. It's okay. It's not all-star. He didn't make the all-star team. It's not $300 and whatever $million it was. And honestly, like, he hasn't been the best hitter on the team even when he was completely healthy. Like, that's belonged to Alonso. It's belonged to Dom Smith at times. It certainly has been Michael Conforto. But it's a concern because he's somebody who he came in and immediately the second he put on the jersey, the Mets were a playoff contender. That's the reason we all said it. And sure, I said I did a nosebleeds with DeLuca, like a season preview kind of thing. And I said that we both picked the Mets to make the playoffs. And subconsciously, even if we didn't say it, it was because they had Francisco Lindor. Like, the rest of the team was exactly the same. Yeah, maybe Alonso was going to take a step up. Maybe deGrom was going to take a step up, even if that's possible, and he did. But it was because Francisco Lindor got there. When he's been healthy, he's been pretty terrible. So that's why this team isn't a playoff team, and it's hard to put it on one player, but it's kind of true, right? That was the biggest positional upgrade, the biggest move this franchise has made outside of, like, the draft, in how many years? And it's been a complete bust this year. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be a complete bust when you look back on it at the end of the contract, but it has been. And now you have to hope that he comes back healthy and powers this team through September. This season is going to end on the couch watching the playoffs instead of in the playoffs, which is where you kind of needed to be when you spent that much money on a player.
So I don't know. Everything's kind of falling off the wheels for the Mets, but the band-aids are coming off, and now you're seeing all these wounds that have been there the whole time. So I don't know. It's not the Mets season's not over. It's far from over. But obviously, in the National League, if you're not in the NL West, you have to win the division if you want to make the playoffs. And you have two teams ahead of you right now that are just playing much better than you. You have to win those games against them if you want to have any chance of sniffing October.